We've got Peter Schmuck now of Baltimore Baseball. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing great, Stan.
Doing better than the Orioles then?
Uh, like all of us, yes.
Yes, yes. Um, haven't had a chance to really talk much with you since the trade deadline. Are you a pro Rutschman trade for what we got, or you're really upset? It's a gut punch, you know.
Um, I'm a little bit ambivalent on this one, and I usually have a strong opinion one way or the other. But
Yeah,
the fact is that for whatever reason, there was no serious talk about extending Rutschman. And I have to think that number one, that's probably because they've already done a bunch of extensions, and now you keep piling them on. Eventually, the owner's going to say, how far are we going with this?
yeah,
And number two, um, you know, I hope Adley has a terrific rest of the season in Boston and next year,
yep,
and signs the biggest contract a catcher ever signed. But what my experience is that he has been inconsistent and injury prone.
yep,
And that may have played into the decision not to pursue him aggressively at the trade deadline as far as a contract because he was on the injured list. And I was a little surprised that the Red Sox were trusting enough of his physical condition. Obviously, they did physicals and they did their due diligence to trade what, three of their top 5 6 prospects,
yep,
and really beef up the future of the Oriole minor league system if they're all as good as advertised. And that's a big
yep,
if, because we can go back, and I haven't done it, I'm sure somebody's done it, go back over not just the Orioles, go back over all the trades that have sent good players for prospects, and then the percentage of prospects who ever play regularly in the major leagues. And I don't think it's a very high number, but because I've looked at a few, and that's disconcerting. But this is one area where Mike Elias is clearly knows what he's doing. If he wants to do that, I don't know that it was necessarily the right thing to do. You're still you're last place, and you're a couple games out of the playoffs,
yeah. I
which
know
is a
it's
real
crazy.
indictment. It's a real indictment of Major League Baseball, and the fact that every major sport has to keep expanding their playoffs till making the playoffs doesn't mean anything, and that
Right.
angers me.
Yeah.
The Orioles and the Blue Jays should not be in contention right now. They should not be thinking that they can go to the playoffs after playing the way they've played. And what are there, 6 or 7 other teams you can say the same thing about?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's well said. Yeah, I'm less even ambivalent. I was kind of tired of the Adley Rutschman hype machine and what the reality of his career has turned into. You know, my fear is that they've got the same exact dynamic going on with ostensibly their best player in Gunnar Henderson. Are you concerned about what the club should do with Gunnar Henderson, or are you willing to just sort of say, well, this is just a blip on his radar?
Well, I can say this: if they went to Scott Boras and said, let's sign a big extension right now, but it won't be nearly as big as it would be if next year he comes back and has 37 home runs and hits 280.
Right.
I think both sides are smart to sit around and wait till next year.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think of where Gunnar is now. All I'm seeing is a loss of confidence, and some bad luck, but bad luck evens out. It really does even out over the long term. And he has had plenty of it. He's hit a lot of balls hard that weren't hits. But the fact is that you can see it on his face after every bat at bat. You can see how he's been advanced scouted. You can tell that by the fact that the guy at second base knows the exact spot to stand for a Gunner ground ball to second base, and he's hit a ton of them this year. And the second baseman's never had to dive. Okay, and that ought to tell you something. And that ought to tell him something too. And one of it is just he simply went from being a patient hitter 2 years ago to being a much more impatient hitter now, and he's got to get that out of his head and go back. And I was encouraged when he let off the game the other day of the walk, and it led to the first run, which meant nothing eventually.
Let me ask you a question about Gunner, Peter. I wrote a piece back at like the end of April. We had just left Cleveland, and I watched Jose Ramirez play ball. And I said, this is a guy that took way undervalue, but he enjoys playing the game. He never looks like he's pissed off. Um, and I wrote a column that questioned whether Scott Boras was doing the right thing for Gunner because he was essentially making it a 3-year project that he keeps the value of $400 million on the table. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an awful lot of pressure to put on a young guy when things aren't going right. Suddenly, is his mind playing through that? Boy, I'm not living up to what I'm supposed to be at a higher level of failure than he's used to.
Well, I don't think the $400 million figure is the issue, um, because the interesting thing about baseball is that now you only have to play 2 years in the major leagues to be and have enough money to live comfortably the rest of your life. Gunner, by the time he gets free agent eligibility, will be up in the, regardless of how he plays, will
Right.
be up to making 10 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, he will have made 20 to $30 million. So
Yep.
I don't think he's sitting around worried about what kind of car he's going to drive. Okay, I think he's worried about not measuring up to his own expectations. I think he's smart enough to understand the money part of it and be able to put that out of his mind. Because
Okay.
I don't think he's a stupid kid. Okay, I've seen him speak. I've been around him. I've talked I've talked to him a little. Um, and he's a country boy. I mean, the way he talks. I mean, he's Matthew McConaughey baseball player. I mean, looks a little
Mm-hmm.
like him, talks a little like him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a very likable guy. And like I said, I think he's smart enough to know that $400 million contract is money his great grandchildren may have to
Right.
spend,
Right.
probably won't have to spend.
Right.
Okay, it's such a ridiculous amount, and you look at the Shohei Otani contract and the Juan Soto on these big, huge contracts, and they do make a case for a salary cap because it's stupid money. Those
Yeah.
people, and the only person whose life is affected by the other 500 million of Shohei's contract is his agent because he's only getting 4% of it,
Yeah.
and he's will never have to work a day in his life, and they still don't. I mean, obviously, the agents make a fortune, but um, the money has gotten stupid. It's gonna cause a work stoppage because the players aren't going to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even though all the major sports have salary caps and they're all successful and all their players make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see the union do is say if we are to agree to this, that the minimum salary has to for the young players has to double, and you have to be contributing to additional salary for minor league players. I don't know how you do that. They're
Mm-hmm.
starting to move in that direction, but there's a lot of players that play baseball that end up having no career and no career preparation who go off into the world and really
Yeah.
have to struggle. And if you're playing in minor leagues for 10 years, you should be accruing some kind of pension.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still doing that for Major League Baseball. They might act like that the minor leagues are separate, but they're not. They're the farm system for Major League Baseball, and these guys should have some kind of something to fall back on if they don't make it, because most of them don't.
Griff, you got a question for
Yeah, I
Peter?
mean, yeah, Peter. I mean, since we're talking about it, it sounds like you're not too optimistic about baseball in 2027. It sounds like we're heading closer to a work stoppage. I mean, a lot of people definitely feel that way after the Dodgers only got stronger at the trade deadline with Tarek Skubal. So, kind of curious how you're kind of viewing that. Do you think there's a way that we can salvage the season, have a partial season, have a full season, or do you think it's possible there's no World Series next year?
Now, Griffin, I'm going to say you're lucky that you probably weren't around for the 94, 95,
I was not. I was not. I'm very fearful though. I'm going to experience it though next year.
and I am too. Um, I I started out this thing a year or
Do we
so.
care? Do we care as much as we used to, Peter?
Well, yeah, yeah, because next year the Orioles might be better, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But for Griffin's question, a couple of years ago when we're looking ahead to this, my opinion was, well, they'll never let 94, 95 happen again. They'll never wipe out a World Series. They'll never do something that stupid. And Rob Manfred was there. He was the engineer of that disaster. But he can't. You make that mistake once, you don't make it twice. Um, Not so sure anymore. And you raised the good question, Griffin. When you look at the Tarek Skubal deal, and you look at Shohei, and you look at Soto and those $700 million contracts, and then factor in that Rob Manfred's the only one around from then, Tim and I. No, I covered every minute of that, and I watched the owners truly believe they were going to win that and have a salary cap, and they might have got it, except for the current Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor threw the law and everything to the wind and ruled against the owners, declaring an impasse in those negotiations when there clearly was an impasse. They'd been negotiating to a standstill for months and months and months, and she basically said, "I want baseball to start again, so I'm ruling, and I'm striking down the impasse." And that's when the owners gave up, and and since then they've worked out things that have acted as soft salary caps, and they've had some success with that. And when this is all over, that's what they're going to end up with, is some more aggressive sharing of revenue. But I don't think they'll. I know the union is not as strong as it was in those days, and I know that all these owners who are billionaires are not used to people saying no to them. And I've written a column on this for BaltimoreBaseball.com a while back. So I can't say now that they won't try this again and they won't push it hard, because there's no one except Rob Manfred that can remember actually how it felt to them. I mean, those people were alive then. I mean, they're older people. They remember it. But the people who did it, who made those decisions, they're not around anymore. And all the guys and women, whoever, the partners who own all these teams are way richer than they were then. And they were pretty darn rich then.
Yeah.
And so they are people who are used to getting their way. And so we'll see how that goes. Peter Angelos, a lot of people, vilify him because he didn't spend enough money on the Orioles over the years. But he was a little bit of a hero in those days because he wouldn't field a replacement team, which would have been an insult to the fans and would have shown that these billionaires were telling the fans, we don't make enough money, which they certainly do make enough money, and went through with that and wiped out the World Series. I hope that my lack of confidence now that I had a year or two ago is ill-conceived, but I'm not optimistic that there will be that opening day will happen on regularly scheduled opening day 2027.
Pete,
Good question.
the the question I have is what you alluded to, that the union isn't as strong as it was back then. Why is that? Is it because the union, in their zealotry at protecting players' rights, have really only protected about, like 10% of the playing population, and the large majority aren't really represented all that well?
Well, I agree with you on that. But the landscape has changed some, because at that time, I think the average player's salary was million and a half. I'm not sure.
Right. What is
But
it
it's
today?
what,
What's the
4 million?
average?
I
Four
think it's
million?
about 4 million. 4 million
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
I'll
I
check.
think.
But
Again,
so
I
much
haven't
of
Five
that
looked
is
that up.
5.3.
five
5.3 is
point
the
three
average
million
salary.
dollars. So
But so
what you
much of
have
that
there,
is decided by so few players, though.
correct,
Yeah,
correct. But more players, more, the vast majority of players now are millionaires. I mean that you get to $1 million pretty quick, and
yeah,
that means something. But the union has always been very good at rallying the players and convincing them that they're doing this for them and they're doing this. The young players were doing this for your future. And if you look back at '94, there were tons of players then that went on to make lots more money because we didn't agree to a salary cap. They can make a very strong argument against the salary cap based on the history of this. And they'll make a strong argument that their lawyers are better than the owner's lawyers. And people generally side with the players when it's all said and done. And to some extent, I do too. Not because I don't think there should be a salary cap. There should be some kind of thing that evens the score for all the players and the minor league players.
yeah,
But the fact is that you don't pay your now $100 a ticket uh, to watch a bunch of guys in suits pick up their phones and talk to each other. You pay guys who wear double mitt jerseys and compete out there to entertain you. And so if they get a bigger piece of the pie, I'll be happy with it. But everybody's got enough already, except the youngest players and the minor league players.
yeah. Well said. Peter, getting back to the Orioles, where where do they go from here? And how strong do you think Mike Elias's position is with this ownership group? David Rubenstein seems like every 2 weeks now is putting out sort of a strong backing for his president of baseball operations. Where do you think the Orioles are right?
Well, I think they have. I don't necessarily think they have a GM problem, although a lot of people would disagree with me because whenever a team goes bad, the GM's allowed, and
Yeah.
that's just a given. If the Orioles miraculously come back, which wouldn't really be a miracle since no matter how
Yeah,
they
they're
play,
so
somehow
yeah,
everybody plays just as bad, and ends up winning 2 playoff series before being eliminated by the Yankees or whoever, um, then Mike Elias is a genius. Okay, and he gets a start, he gets a do over, gets to move forward. If they spend the next 2 series going 0-7 and dropping out, there's going to be a lot of people that want a new general manager. The big question there, I always ask the people that write to me and say he's got to go. Well, who do you want instead? I mean, is there some genius out there that's gonna change the economic situation for the Orioles or the minor league situation for the Orioles? Maybe, but guess what? Usually, the president of baseball operations is the one that hires that guy, and David Rubenstein is probably not qualified, nor are his partners, to hire that guy. So they might have to actually hire a guy to hire the guy, in a
yeah,
sense. I mean, it's a complicated situation, and I really don't think Mike Elias. Um, I don't think he's the problem. I mean, I think the team the last year. I mean, last year the one move by Mike Elias that I think was a terrible move was firing Brandon Hyde.
yeah.
Guy's 2-time manager of the year, and 6 weeks into the season,
All of a
he
sudden
can't
he's an
relate to his
idiot. Yeah,
team.
yeah,
And it was, yeah, he couldn't relate to the fact that all his starting pitchers were on the injured list. It was just a bad decision that's compounded by the fact, and we've talked about this many times on this show, on radio shows. Teams that fire managers remain bad teams. They don't get better generally. Now, they made a great choice with Buck Showalter, and and when Elias came in and he was going to have his own guy, he made a great choice with Brandon Hyde, and he should have stuck with it, like the Rays stick with Kevin Cash, who's a great manager, and they know it, even though a couple of bad years have happened in between.
yep, yeah,
Okay, and that goes for football, and I don't have a big problem with the Ravens making a change because you know
because it was long overdue.
Well, no, but Harbaugh's been the head coach forever,
Yeah,
and at some point, a fresh face is probably a good thing.
yeah,
But if they had, fired Harbaugh back when they had their first losing season in forever, that would have been stupid. He's had a tremendous amount of, you have all this success, and Hyde had it too, but not, you know, Harbaugh. What do you go playoffs 6 out of the first 7 years? He had a Super
yeah,
Bowl. I mean, his record was pristine. Brandon Hyde's was too, except for 6 weeks. A tough second half going into the playoffs the year before, and then 6 weeks of the first into the season. I think that was a huge mistake.
yeah.
That
I
you
agree.
can't. And guess who he's helping be in first place right now. So that ought to tell you something.
Yeah, yeah. How much of that decision was based on the pressure starting to build on him, on Mike
Of
Elias, that
course,
he
of
responded
course.
to that? He
That
threw the
that's
he threw the low hanging fruit to the sharks.
I think at the time, I think Mike actually almost articulated. He almost said it, which was, "Well, I'm not going to fire myself."
Right.
They
And
that's what happens. You have an owner say, "Well, it's going to be." I don't know this happened, but you can. Sometimes you have an owner say, "Well, it can be you or it can be him. What's it going to be?" Well, that's not a tough decision, and I can't blame Mike Elias for not firing himself.
yeah,
But I will say this: if they start next year like they started this year, he will not survive that.
yeah, the seat is going to be very, very hot. We're talking with Peter Schmuck of BaltimoreBaseball.com. Peter, what do you got you're working on right now?
Well, I'm at the moment I'm in a bit of a holding pattern because I want to see how they respond to this 4 game wraparound series with the Jays. I mean the Rays. I'm not optimistic, but they really are this weird team that whenever they lose exactly the same way. They get one hit in the first 5 innings or 2 hits in the first 6 innings, and they make one really bad defensive play. And whether they're ahead or behind at that point, they lose. And then they wake up 2 days later and they score 9 runs. And then the next day, the next day, uh, you got Dean Kramer, who they traded because I think they thought he's done, and he gives up one hit over 7 innings,
Yeah,
and that's not. I mean, great job by Dean Kramer. I hope I love the guy. I think he's a good pitcher. I think they kind of did him wrong coming out of spring training, but I think they saw something because of I don't know, but having a pitcher that was one of their better pitchers for several years, and then not having him make the team out of spring training, this was a this was a no brainer at the midseason.
yeah,
And I hope he does well. He's done well. He's done well so far, and I hope
yeah.
he does
Pitched two
well.
good games for the
Yeah.
Minnesota Twins.
It's it. I just would like to see. I hate to say it. I'd like to see him go one way or the other. I
Yeah,
mean, I know that's a silly thing to say, but my big thing in defending them in the first half, and I said it to many people, and they will that and this is long before it actually happened. I said there's you have to remember that no matter how good or how bad a major league team is, every team has one 7 game winning streak. Every team will have one 7 game winning. I don't care how bad they are. And so, sure enough, they had their 7 game winning streak. So, my argument is the same. They're still capable of having a 7 game winning streak, but they better do it pretty soon.
they
And the
better
problem
do it.
is that now this
Dependable.
competition is immeasurably higher than it was
Yeah,
during this late 2 and 4 span that they just squandered.
yeah, yeah. They've only got 41 games left. The All-Star game now being at like 97, 98 games. There's really not this great amount of time the
Mm-hmm.
second half of the season. All right,
Yeah, I mean,
Peter
they,
Schmuck.
they got to win 25 of them,
Yeah, yeah.
and
All right,
they
Peter
haven't
Schmuck.
shown.
Really appreciate your coming on with us. Continue your good work with BaltimoreBaseball.com. All right, Peter.
And
All right. We'll be